everyone, welcome back to my channel. Brianna Zignard here. Have you ever heard the phrase that cooking is an art but baking is a science? Today we're going to find out the truth behind that, so come with me and let's get to baking. Today I'm going to be baking brownies, chocolate chip cookies, and a chocolate cake. 3 desserts that have very similar ingredients yet have results in completely different desserts. And we're gonna find out the reason why. But before we can talk about that, I actually have to bake them. The links to the recipes I'm gonna be using are in the description, and I figured you don't want a live time watch me bake 3 different baked goods and do all the dishes associated with that. So please enjoy this little baking montage. Alright, we're back with a plate of baked goods. I got my cake, a little piece of cake over here, some cookies, and my brownies. So let's talk about how, despite the fact we put so many ingredients that were similar together, why are these so different? So over here, I've put together a nice Venn diagram with all the ingredients, and we're gonna look at the similarities and differences between them. So let's start with the brownies. Now you'll notice the brownies don't have any unique ingredients in them. It means every single ingredient that I put in the brownies got put into cake or cookies as well. So it's not really any special ingredients that make brownies the way that it is, but it's the absence of certain ingredients that give brownies their preferably like denser, fudgier texture. So tasty. The reason why this is that brownies don't really have any leavening agent to them. Now, leavening is something that makes a batter or a dough rise. Yeast is the leavening agent in bread. And in baked goods, often we use like baking soda or baking powder as a leavening agent, which I'll talk about more in a second. But brownies don't have any leavening agent in them, which results in this really fudgy texture instead of something light and airy, like you would see in a cake. Brownies also tend to have a little bit more eggs versus flour. So if you notice in our recipe that compared to the cookies and the cake, the brownies had the least amount of flour, and therefore the egg to flour ratio was a lot higher. Eggs do all sorts of things in baked goods, but they can add some structure, they can add fudginess, they can add some fat, they can add tenderness, and all of this results, a little bit more eggs and a lot less flour, results in a really crumbly, dense, fudgy brownie that we all know and love. Now moving on to the cookies. Now, between the brownies and the cookies, they do share having solid chocolate in them. So these had solid chocolate, like chocolate chips with them, and obviously the chocolate chip cookies do as well. They also shared having a solid fat or butter. But what the cookies have that the brownies don't have is baking soda or a leavening agent. And what this does is it provides a little bit of lift. So chemical leavening agents, such as baking soda or baking powder, work via acid-base chemistry. So that's what happens when you combine something that is acidic, like lemon juice, vinegar, with something basic, so baking soda, or even bleach is very basic. And when the two combine together, it creates a chemical reaction and releases carbon dioxide. So like if you have, we all know, if you combine baking soda and vinegar together, you can make a science fair volcano. Or please check out my short and I show you how to make a baking soda and vinegar little rocket. When an acid and a base combine together, they're releasing carbon dioxide. They're helping to lift that batter. Now you'll see that our cookie recipe had baking soda in it, which is a base, but it didn't have any vinegar in it. You don't put vinegar in cookie dough. So what adds that acid into it that allows it to rise. And that brings me into the one ingredient in cookies that doesn't exist in the brownies or the cake, and that is brown sugar. So brown sugar is just white sugar that has had some molasses left in it after it's been processed, and that gives it that dark color, that clumpy texture, in a deeper, like rich kind of, the brown sugar flavor. So not only does the brown sugar add flavor to our cookies, it is also slightly acidic. So that slight acidity combines with the basic baking soda to create a little bit of lift in our cookies that makes them a little bit lighter. Now, as we all know, if you use different methods for combining the ingredients, or different types of butter, or different types of sugar in different amounts, or different types of flour, you can get like cookies that go from thin and crispy to fluffy and cakey, or even chewy. And this one is a perfect mixture of chewy, crispy, and cakey for me. All thanks to chemistry. Oh, I really should have thought about that before taking a bite. Now, last but not least, is our chocolate cake, which has a very different texture than all of our baked goods that we sampled so far. It's got a lot of, I don't even know if you can see it, it's got a lot of pores in it. It's a very light and airy. And guess where all of that light and airy texture comes from? That's right, our leavening. So our recipe had baking soda, it had some baking powder, but there's also sour cream and buttermilk involved. And baking powder, sour cream, and buttermilk are all acids. Combining those with our baking soda, which is a base, gives us a lot of lifting power to a cake. So if you've ever put like cake batter in a tin and you've overfilled it, because when you put the batter in, it's like fits in the tin, and then you bake it and it like gets really high, it's overflowed. That's because of the chemical leavening agents. So all of that acid and base chemistry creates a lot of lift in our cake. Cakes are also a little bit different, or at least this recipe is, because it used oil, or a liquid fat, versus butter, which is a solid fat at room temperature. So vegetable oil is liquid at room temperature, and that just gives a little bit more moistness to the cake. But some cake recipes still use butter, it's perfectly fine. Just oil sometimes helps it to make it a little bit more moist, and fat really helps to tenderize baked goods. We have barely scratched the surface on how different ingredients or different methods or different ratios all impact the result of a baked good. But we have learned a little bit today about how baking is truly a science, and that science is chemistry. I hope you enjoyed learning about how cookies, cake and brownies differ in their ingredients and why they taste the way that they do. Today's fun fact to rate is that the brownie was originally invented for the Chicago's World Fair, and that the original recipe contained chocolate, walnuts, and an apricot glaze. Be sure to rate that fun fact below in the comments, like and subscribe, share it with your friends, follow me on Instagram. I post every Tuesday and Friday. Go bake some tasty treats and keep it sciencey.